Let's do a little peekaboo with the Big Ten title game. So it is on Saturday right here on the Fan at 5 o'clock. You can watch it on CBS as well. I thought it was interesting. CBS got the first, because they're going to rotate all the partners of the Big Ten.
That's got to be an alternate thing between them and NBC.
But Fox has had the Big Ten for forever, so Fox will be a part of it as well.
Oh, is it all three?
I don't think Fox has a conference championship game this weekend.
Don't they have the Big 12?
Do they have the Big 12? No, Big 12's on ABC.
Fox has no conference title games.
Fox has no. So ABC has the SEC, the Big 12, and the ACC.
Okay.
CBS has the Big 10.
Fox has the Mountain West Friday night.
I'm rooting for UNLV in that one.
Yeah, we'll get to that as well. That's for a bid. Tulane lost this weekend, so there's a good chance with UNLV winning, they would easily be. They're not currently ranked ahead of them, but they will be when the rankings come out tomorrow.
Peekaboo.
But Oregon and Penn State, we know James Franklin is great at winning games that he's supposed to win. Here they are again, 11-1. They dominated Maryland this week. And actually, I'll get to some audio of his in a second, but Ohio State loses. We all figured Penn State would beat Maryland. What's your first thought of the matchup between Oregon and Penn State?
You know, I think my first reaction was kind of excited. I didn't think it would be that. If you would have told me that was going to be the results going into the weekend, is that Ohio State loses, Penn State wins, they're in. Because I feel like I've watched the Penn State game 80 times in my life where they play the more talented team and they struggle and they lose.
Yeah.
Oregon, the only, I would say, liability here for me, because ESPN's FPI is giving Penn State a lean.
Slight lean.
Is the Oregon, are they going to have a trip up? This is a real thing with Duck fans in my life. I'm not going to speak for every Duck fan out there, but I've thrown this at people for a couple weeks. And the amount of, I'd rather lose in the Big Ten title game and kind of get that out versus can you run the full gauntlet through? You don't want to lose a game. Being undefeated this year would be exceptional. But I think Penn State can hang. They hung with Ohio State this year. They've got the horses on defense. We know Lanning and company are going to be zeroed in on Tyler Warren because, my God, why would you not be?
Guy's a monster.
But I'm excited for this. There was a stat I saw last night, and I hope it's accurate. Washington, Oregon, since 1994, that Kenny Wheaton's going to score, Oregon's won 75% of the games.
Yeah.
That's dominance. That is that's quite literally a turning point. It's why they play that clip. Penn State, Oregon is also kind of a symbolism for, hey, look at us. We've taken a big step.
They haven't played since that Rose Bowl.
And it's taken them a couple, they've had their little lumps here and there, but they've largely done nothing but be a stock that's rising. Yes. And so I like it. I'm excited for it. They didn't play this year. Penn State's schedule was weak. Some say Oregon's schedule ended up being kind of weak. So Ohio State, you don't deserve it. You threw up all over yourself. I'm glad not to have to see that part too. I'd sign up for one we haven't seen all season.
I'm excited that they didn't you get a matchup that you didn't get in the regular season.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Exciting.
That's exciting.
The only thing about Penn State is they seem a lot more predictable, and for Dan Lanning and that coaching staff, if they can key in on offense where they believe the football is going to go most often, and defensively where the playmakers, the guys that truly make a lot of the plays for Penn State are coming from, I think that's a big advantage. And then I think if Tez is back, if they're as healthy as they can be on defense, looks like Birch is back and able to be out there most of the game. They rotate their guys throughout the game anyway, so he's not playing every snap no matter what. I think they have the ability to be more diverse and dynamic. And we've seen their ability to stay focused, not worry about the circumstances of a game because it's close, to change how they go about that just – okay, we need to drive, we need to make a play, we need to get off the field and make a stop and quit worrying about and not think, why are we, in a dogfight with this team that we were supposed to win by 2 touchdowns or whatever.
Yeah.
I think the mentality out there is, we got to do what we got to do to win the game, and they've been able to keep that all the way through the season, and I was frankly surprised that the line wasn't closer to a touchdown.
Yeah, so the line on the game, for those wondering, 3.5, Oregon is favored. So the FPI gives Penn State a slight lean to win. They're not favored in the game.
No,
Oregon is favored by 3.5 going into the game, so Vegas disagrees with the ESPN Football Power Index.
Feels like Oregon's kind of been this to those models, whether that's Vegas or Football Power Indexes. It kind of feels like Oregon's kind of been going as this
S&P
team.
AP plus at Oregon. They've been a top 5 team for most of the year, but not very often the number 1 team, despite being undefeated and the only undefeated
as
team.
As good
in the
as they are, and they have experience at every key position you could have it. I think even you wearing a Tuck hoodie today, cocky sniffing in the last set, I think even you would admit, like, going 12-0, you just would have thought maybe there'd be a trip up.
I picked up. I mean, we'll revisit our season-ending predictions.
I had them 2 losses.
I had them with 1. I figured somebody could get them somewhere. And Wisconsin came damn close. Boise came damn close. I mean, there's a few opportunities they had. Ohio State came damn close.
The only error I made was I said they would be the number 2 seed, figuring the SEC would have the
somebody
the
else
SEC
would
was going to have an undefeated.
Yeah.
Or
that's a hot take.
Yeah.
Or they'd put a 1-loss SEC over an undefeated Big Ten
Something
for the 1
like
seed.
that.
I will say, like, when you look at the matchup, I do like it for Oregon. Drew Aller has not been very good in big games. Dylan Gabriel has been great in big games.
Plus,
I think there's a big advantage.
I know where
at quarterback.
Aller's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, he's not an athlete, so you kind of hem him into the pocket. He's not going to go anywhere. He can't beat you with his legs. They got one main target. I mean, when you look at the breakdown of catches this year, Tyler Warren has 81 for Penn State. Next closest for them is Harrison Wallace with 35. So he's like doubled up their number 2 wide receiver.
Yeah.
The key will be for Oregon what they can do to Penn State's run game. So when you look at Penn State, and maybe the only big game, quote-unquote big game they played this year, it was against Ohio State earlier this season. That was the difference in the game. Now, Ohio State wins that game going away if Will Howard doesn't fumble into the end zone and they take a touchdown off the board or doesn't throw a pick six.
He also threw a pick 6
So
in that
they
game,
did a lot of things to help Penn State out to keep around. I think when you look at the rushing totals for Singleton and Allen, their 2 top running backs at Penn State, they combined for something like 20 carries for 40 yards. I mean, they just could not run the football against Ohio State, and it made them one-dimensional. And I think if they're one-dimensional, you love your chance to win the game. Drew Aller might be a good pro prospect. 18 touchdowns, 5 picks doesn't leave you shaking in your boots. I do know that Tyler Warren is a stud. I think it comes down simply to that. Can you slow down their run game with your front 7 and make Drew Aller beat you? And if you do that, you got a great chance to win the game.
Harmon and Caldwell against the Huskies were just dominant.
I mean, Jonah Coleman had 9 feet of rushing yards.
Yeah.
He had 11 carries for 3 yards?
So if they have to bring 3 or 4, the entire interior has to come down and block those 2. And you got Birch and whoever else is on the other side, and Uyunglele one-on-one, then it's just their ability to read the play and make the tackle.
Well, I think the other side of that, though, too, because as dominant as Oregon's defense is, and what feels like is kind of a predictable Penn State offense against these level of teams, how about the other side? Gabriel's had statistically a really good year. They've also had games and moments. They kind of had it a little bit. I know they scored 49, but they had a little bit. Like they have moments in games where they go through these lows offensively.
Mm-hmm.
Does Penn State create a turnover?
Yeah.
Does Penn State have a tipped pick 6 or a scoop and score? Like that's kind of how I feel like Penn State wins that game. Other than that, like you take Tyler Warren out. I don't think
easier said than done because everybody tries to do it against
him. He's an absolute stud.
Yeah.
But Lanning and LaPoya right now, as we speak, probably going through film and figuring ways to kind of box him out.
Give the main role to? Would you go Betcher on him, or would you?
It's a group
Muhammad,
effort.
I think you got to go group effort. Muhammad's too small. You can't. Muhammad's 5'8", basically standing on tippy toes. He's a tiny guy.
I don't think there's a one-player thing here.
I think you're going to bracket him with a linebacker and a safety, and you're going to just say anybody else go ahead and beat us.
Betcher, Bassa with Savage on top. Like you're just doing stuff like that.
Devin Jackson's an incredible athlete, one of the fastest guys on the team.
Is Oregon's offense from Wisconsin going to show up? Because that's what makes that a really tough game.
Well, I really think the controlled environment inside a dome on turf helps the Ducks.
With the bye week
immensely.
a week ago as well, and having Tez back was huge for them, just as a guy with a distraction. And some of the lulls they go through, you're not wrong. They've done that all year offensively. A lot of it, too, is self-inflicted. Early in that game, one of the series they went 3-and-out and punted was because Evan Stewart dropped the ball, hit him in the hands. He's running a crossing route. He picks up a first down easily. He just didn't catch the ball. And so a lot of that stuff is self-inflicted. Last thought on this that I have is that I think the win would be amazing. The symbolism of 13-0, Big Ten championship game in year 1 in the conference, beating Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State now in the first year in the conference would be pretty damn cool.
When people were asking if you were ready for Big Ten football.
Can we handle the physicality? It is also a weird feeling going in there because losing might end up being the better thing.
I'm seriously asking
It
this.
might end up being the better pathway to a college football national championship.
You don't want to lose that first playoff game. Be like, okay, that a whole season just
I mean,
gets
you're now
over.
looking at if Georgia loses to Texas on Saturday, which I don't know how that game's going to go.
It
Maybe
could
they do.
happen.
Could.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at it maybe the 8-9 matchup being like Georgia and Ohio State. Or, like that could be your
Those
first
could be the
opponent
teams, yeah.
as opposed to playing a Big 12 champ and an at-large team from the Mountain West like UNLV or Boise. What's the easier path?
Your reward for winning
it's just a
the
weird
Big
feeling.
Ten would be like, hey, congratulations. You get to play at the Rose Bowl against Kirby Smart and
Kirby
Georgia.
Smart. Yeah, he's got a month to prepare for you. It's a weird feel. Like last year in the Pac-12 title game, it was everything. It was that was it. And if you lose, your season's over. This year's kind of a different feeling. So at least it's nice going in a little bit looser. But Oregon, Penn State Saturday, there's a little peekaboo for you. Big Ten championship game. Ohio State not there, just like we all predicted.